Hello, welcome back to JM Football. I am Justin Penik alongside Dalton Feely, and this is All JM Team, All JM NFL Team version 2.0, and the second version of that 2.0, because now we're going over to the defensive side of the ball. Yesterday, we talked about the offense. Dalton Feely, I gotta admit, usually the offense is a little bit more glitz and glamour with some fun names and some fun conversations. I thought the offense was pretty predictable. Had a lot of names that it's like, yeah, I expect this guy to be the best quarterback, the best running back, best receivers, blah, blah, blah. I actually really like the crop of names that we have top to bottom, from interior defensive line going all the way down to safety. So we're going to talk about some of the best players in the NFL. This is version 2.0, reflecting weeks 1 through 8. Dalton, how are you?
Doing good. I'm very excited. I think you're so right about the defense versus offense when we do this type of list, because it's kind of, for some reason, offense so far has been very predictable. Like, we know those top dogs right now, statistically, on the field. It's like, yeah, these guys are the best. Defensively, there can be arguments for a lot of different guys at a lot of different positions. I know there's a player or two that I'm like, man, they really deserve to be on this list, and they just can't be, because we're going normal nickel 4-2-5 personnel.
And we won't forget a corner this time. We forgot a corner last time.
Well, yeah, that was somebody that on the list. Like, I just didn't have research. I had a third corner. I just didn't. We didn't go in depth about it.
It's all right. We're bad football teams like to run out 10 guys on the football field. So we were a bad football team there. We're going to be better now.
That's absolutely right. I'm excited, and I know you're excited about this first guy in this list, Justin Penik.
Yeah.
Giants interior defensive lineman Dexter Lawrence, the only Giant you're going to see on this list. Spoiler alert. Dexter. I think it's so impressive how great Dexter Lawrence has been. Since last year, he has been legitimately one of the best interior defensive linemen in all of football, not just in the NFC. He's been so good in PFF. I love PFF. I know some people don't like PFF. They do a really good job in terms of evaluating play on at any position, but specifically at defensive line, because it gives you win percent, pressure percent, how many pressures they get, QB hits, hurries, all of that information in the pass rushing game, which is so important to evaluate, because sacks are great. Sacks are a huge deal getting to that quarterback, but sacks are also an offensive line stat, a quarterback stat, and it's sometimes a luck stat too. Like, if you're cleaning up a play, if Dexter Lawrence got a pressure and makes the quarterback step up, and all of a sudden, let's say Xavier McKinney was blitzing and he gets the sack, that's not registered to Dexter Lawrence, which, that's why sacks I get a little worried on. That's my rant about sacks. Going to Dexter Lawrence now. Basically grades out first in everything out of all interior defensive linemen in football this year. It's absolutely amazing. First in PFF pass rush grade, first in pass rush productivity. He's first in win percent, so he's beaten offensive line consistently. Has the most pressures in football out of the all interior defensive linemen. And he's second in run defense too. So not only is he doing it in the pass rushing game, which you're going to break down his game too, but he's doing it in the run game, playing on the A gap, and he's been fantastic. And 3 sacks this year, so he's even finishing up some of the messes he creates in a good way.
And he's doing it as a nose tackle too.
Yeah.
He's not just A gap, B gap, whatever. Hey, we'll give you a little bit more space. He's doing it as a nose tackle, and he's double teamed so often. It's going to be really interesting to see how he plays now that Leonard Williams isn't here, but I'm not expecting it to slow down for Dexter Lawrence, because, Dalton, I'll give you a little quiz. Who's leading the league in pressures? This is interior defensive linemen, edge rushers, everybody.
Who's leading it?
Who's leading the league in pressures?
So, interior defensive line and edge, usually it's an edge guy, but Dexter's been so good, I'm actually going to say it's Dexter.
Dexter Lawrence is tied for the league lead in
Myles
pressures
Garrett?
with Nick Bosa.
Nick Bosa, okay.
44. He leads all interior defensive linemen in pass rush win rate. He's 4th in pass rush productivity behind Myles Garrett, Trey Hendrickson, and Micah Parsons.
And this is all defensive linemen.
This is all defense. This is interior defensive linemen and edge rushers. And he's tied for 2nd in the NFL in QB hits, and this is all via PFF. So not just amongst interior defensive linemen. If you look at his stats amongst just nose tackles, because that's the position that Dexter Lawrence plays. We put him in the blanket of interior defensive linemen, but he's a nose tackle.
And he had so many against the Jets. He was a dominant force too last week, right?
It was insane. You've really started to see. He's been dominant all year, but you started to see 2022 Dexter Lawrence over the last 2 weeks against Washington, and then I hate to say this, we have producer Steve, who's a Jets fan. did he break Connor McGovern's leg? Like, he dog walked him and like broke his leg, like tore his ACL. It was because he dog walked him, because he kicked his ass. Very insensitive. But you can't only just measure Dexter Lawrence amongst nose tackles or interior defensive linemen. It's getting to the point where it's like you need to start evaluating him amongst these edge rushers too, which edge rushers is like, that's like the position where you are supposed to compile these stats and compile these numbers. And he's really good against the run too, like very, very good against the run. So that's Dexter Lawrence. Going
to our second guy, I mean, putting Dexter Lawrence in the same breath as Myles Garrett, Nick Bosa on the edge, and now we're going to put him in the same breath as a future Hall of Famer, Rams interior defensive lineman Aaron Donald. Donald, I feel like we haven't heard much about him this year. He's having still a very productive season. It might not be Donald-esque, but he's still producing. So PFF pass rush grade, he's number 2 out of all interior defensive linemen. 2nd in pressures. He's 3rd in win percentage. Pass rush productivity, he's 5th. Sacks, he's got 4.5. So like out of interior defensive linemen, he's, I think, top 7 in terms of sacks too. I think we also don't hear about Aaron Donald because that Rams defense is just so young and they have so many new faces on that defense. And he's now the veteran, which, granted, he came out in 2014, right, out of Pitt. Aaron Donald is still winning against double teams. He's still creating havoc. And on a defense that doesn't have the stars that it used to, he's still playing his ball, and it's a pleasure to watch him play. And I'm excited to see him play somewhat of a beaten-up Packers offensive line next week, too.
Yeah, for sure. And even, like, I look at the emergence of a guy like Byron Young from Tennessee, who was really, really light, a light edge rusher rookie, like I said, out of Tennessee. Yeah. And he's like having a decently good rookie year. And I'm not going to say, it's because of all of Aaron Donald, but, playing next to Aaron Donald has made a lot of edge rushers look pretty decent over the last couple of years. And it's certainly helped them. Aaron Donald's versatility, where he'll line up at, defensive end with his hand on the ground one play, and then he'll go to the other side. He'll line up as a defensive end, and then he'll go to the other side, and he'll be an interior defensive lineman. It'll be a nose. You could do whatever. You could ask Aaron Donald to do whatever. We already know how good he is. Now, Dalton, I actually want to talk about an honorable mention really, really quick.
Yeah.
And I want you to look on PFF, and I want you to check in on this with me, for me, while I talk about him.
Okay.
I want you to check on Chris Jones and his snaps, his detailed snaps by position.
Okay.
Because what Kansas City has been asking Chris Jones to do this year is they've been asking him to line up as like an edge / 4-3 defensive end. Kind of like, if you think back to Steve Spagnuolo in his time with the Giants, it's kind of like, so you mean you're a Justin Tuck, Michael Strahan, put your hands in the dirt, have a bigger guy out there with his hand in the dirt. And usually that does not work for interior defensive linemen if they're putting their hands in the dirt across from offensive tackles, because they don't have the same speed that edge rushers do. But it's working for Chris Jones. And I at least think for the first half of this year, Dalton, they've been asking him to line up as a defensive end. And because of how well he can work his hands, he's kicking ass. So has that changed? Are they still having him line up as like outside the tackle or by the tackle, or are they kicking it back to the interior a little bit more?
A little bit more interior still, but they are using him in both ways. So looking at it, they are moving him all over. We going into the last 2 weeks, week 7 and week 8, we're seeing him outside 19 snaps out of a possible roughly 70.
Okay.
Excuse me. About roughly 70. So 2/7 basically. That's still a pretty penny, and for a guy who used to be primarily an interior guy for Kansas City.
Yeah, but definitely the first half of the year, that's what they were asking him to do, and he was still extremely effective doing it. So I wanted to give a shout out to Chris Jones's versatility. And if you ask a lot of these other interior defensive linemen to line up like against the tackle consistently, especially with how fast quarterbacks are getting rid of the ball in today's league, they wouldn't be able to have the same production that they would have from the interior. So Chris Jones having a really good year. Shout out to him. You want to move to the edge rushers?
I do. One more quick shout out, Justin Matabuke, 6.5 sacks this year out of Baltimore. That the defense has been unreal. Number one defense, basically fighting with Cleveland back and forth all season, statistically speaking. But Matabuke, 6.5 sacks. If you asked a relatively avid NFL fan which interior defensive lineman had the most sacks in football, I don't think anyone's saying Justin Matabuke. Nope. So quick shout out to him having a quiet, very good season so far. But now to edge. Speaking of that Browns versus Baltimore defense, two of the best in football, we're going to stay with the Browns. Edge rusher Myles Garrett, the freak himself. He's still doing everything. That's not changing at all. He's first in pass rush productivity, first in pass rush grade, first in win percentage. 4 forced fumbles. 4, not 1, not 2. Quoting LeBron there. Tied for third in sacks with 8.5, and he's pressures. He's still up there in the top 10, basically, in edge rush guys. Myles Garrett, the alien. I think this could be the year where he gets that DPOY. It's him. It's T.J. Watt. Those are the two guys I think that come week 18, sacks are going to be close, pressure percent's going to be close, win percentage is going to be close. It's going to be who has the best performance ultimately. And Myles Garrett has been a freak. We still talk about in the office. We still talk about that basketball clip where he's crossing over before
the Hezzy,
yeah. And it's under Jim Schwartz that first year. It's been so fun watching him so far.
Now, and I've made a couple Myles Garrett videos this year. I also stumbled upon making a, hey, Dalton, I'm going to spoil it. Our second selection is TJ Watt.
Sure.
And
that's fine.
I've stumbled my way onto making some TJ Watt videos this year. And man, I have never seen more of a war happen in the comments section. It's not me driven, let's just say. It's not driven by something that I said. It's just I'm making a video on Myles Garrett or I'm making a video on TJ Watt. And man, I just see the comments section just light up with TJ Watt better, Myles Garrett better. This guy's a bum. And it's all just Steelers and Browns fans just going at it with each other on who's better and who's not. So tell me about TJ Watt's season so far. Yeah,
TJ Watt, those guys are a little bit different. I'll get into that. But TJ Watt leads the league in fumble recoveries with 3. Also has 8.5 sacks going into Week 9. He played Thursday night, recorded a sack, but that's not counting. Never happened technically in this video. Run defense, he's 4th, which is very impressive. And he's got an interception. He's got 2 forced fumbles. He's got a defensive touchdown. TJ Watt, he's not a guy, he executes some plays. I think if I'm taking a pass rusher, in my opinion, if I'm playing a 4-2-5, right, and this is based on this list, we're not doing a 3-3-5 stack, we're doing a 4-2-5, I think I would go Garrett over TJ Watt. That said, if I'm looking for someone who can also drop back into coverage, be an athlete, create some plays in coverage, TJ Watt's my guy in that aspect because I trust TJ Watt, and I've seen him where he'll step into his zone and quarterbacks either don't think he's a threat to make a play on the ball or they don't see him, and then he makes a play in that realm, which is bonkers for a guy who's going to have 15 plus sacks in a season.
Did you see that interception he had against the Rams?
Yeah.
He was lined up as a cornerback, Dalton.
Lined up as a cornerback, yeah. And then he had the pick 6 versus the Browns, I think, on Monday Night Football.
I was watching it, and I'm like, what the hell is he doing out there? He was lined up against a wide receiver. It wasn't even I get it. Sometimes you're going to have some edge rushers be man versus man against the tight end, or maybe even man versus man against the running back, and then if they motion out pre-snap, I get it. If you're playing man coverage, you gotta follow them. So you're gonna have your edge rusher, linebacker, whatever, follow them. This was TJ Watt lined up across from a wide receiver. Something, what are you doing out there, bro? And lo and behold, he beats Matt Stafford. And this is I think the first play of the second half. Cooper Kupp's running a whip route, baits Matt Stafford into throwing that ball to Cooper Kupp, jumps it, returns the ball almost back for a touchdown. It was one of the more insane, football IQ plays that I've ever seen, somebody make. Somebody who's, totally out of position.
He's played some slot in his career. I did pull it up because I was curious, how much slot he's played. This year,
safety or whatever. I got
this
isn't a stop. This isn't a surprise. He was in high school? He was a former fucking safety. Get out of here.
We talk about that with Urlacher when he used to play at New Mexico State. He was a safety, guys. He was a safety.
Stop. It's impressive. don't.
Yeah. Guys making plays on the field, impressive. Impressive. It's through and through.
Any honorable mentions? We'll go through them quick.
Danielle Hunter, 10 sacks. For a Vikings defense that started slow, has started to bounce back a little bit. Their rushing defense has been pretty good since week 4. So that's a great sign. Josh Allen, Trey Hendrickson also having quite good seasons, over 8 sacks to each their own. But yeah, I think Micah Parsons, of course, himself too. I didn't put him on here, obviously. Meant to put Micah Parsons as an honorable mention. He's still so unique in his own right. But yeah, I think I'm good to go to linebacker. This and CB are the two where I'm there are guys that either I have or don't have that's going to be a very interesting talking point. Going to the first one, it's linebacker from the 49ers, Fred Warner, the BYU product. He does everything well. Like, when I watch Fred Warner play on that Niners defense, that studly Niners defense, there's not anything where I'm like, man, he's just not good at this. He can cover. He plays run defense well. They don't use him as a pass rusher often, but compared to other linebackers. But when he does, he gets home and makes some plays. And statistically, like, it's proven true. Like, he's top 10 in almost everything. Like, forced fumbles, he's first. Interceptions, he's tied for second. Run defense grade by PFF, third. Forced incompletions, fourth. Rating allowed, coverage linebacker, fifth. Sacks, he's got 2 this season. He tackles. He's a tackle machine. He's 11th. He's got 71 tackles. Fred Warner does everything so well, and it's so fun to watch. And I think we're lucky. I'm curious to see if he continues this. Is he a potential gold jacket guy if he plays longer in his career?
Oh yeah, I think 100% he is, because I think he's helping change the way that some people evaluate the linebacker position. And I kind of just, like, my overall thought on Fred Warner, like, we don't need to tell you how good he is. He's inevitable, and like Thanos, like Fred Warner's inevitable. I feel like as long as he's playing, he's gonna be on this list, and I think I totally agree with you. I think he's really headed towards that gold jacket territory. I want to talk about this next linebacker though.
Yeah, I mean, we have some honorable mentions. I do want to just put them out there because, like, I could have put Bobby Wagner, Roquan Smith, Demario Davis, even Zaire Franklin, who's been very good, but we have producer Steve in here today. And he's going to love the next one I got. I got Jets linebacker Quincy Williams. Quincy, he's another one of those linebackers that does pretty much everything well, especially this season. Last year, he was starting out his breakout party. This year, he's solidified himself as one of the best linebackers in football. PFF has graded him out as the number 1 linebacker in coverage this season. He's only allowed 6 yards per reception, which is wild as a linebacker, where he's getting targeted a lot. He's faced the second most targets out of all linebackers in football. And he's been so good, where PFF grades him out as number 1. Forced incompletions, 6th highest in football out of linebackers. He's got a forced fumble this year. He's tied for 3rd in stops at a linebacker. So in the run game, he's making plays. He's got 23 stops. He's also tied with Fred Warner in tackles with 71. That's like a fun feely stat where I'm like, wow, oddly enough, these two guys I have same amount of tackles. Crazy. But Quincy Williams, we talk about Quinn Williams, former first-round pick at Alabama, being how good he is. His brother has been just as good this season, if not even better at his own position. It's been very impressive for Quincy Williams.
Yeah, man. And the thing that sticks out to me, he's 250 pounds, but he moves like he's 225. Like one of these line. It's such an annoying thing to evaluate linebackers in the draft now, because all right, you look at these guys' weights. All right, well, you're fast as hell. You can run sideline to sideline, but you're 225 pounds. Great. Like, you're a big safety. You're not a linebacker. Quincy Williams is 250 pounds, moves like he's 225 pounds. But you could be as fast as you want. If you don't have the awareness, if you don't have the wherewithal to recognize what's happening in front of you, then the speed doesn't matter. And Quincy Williams marries having really, really good explosion, good athleticism, with really being aware and knowing where to be, and also just being aggressive, pouncing on plays. There was a tackle for loss that he had against the Eagles. They were driving down the field. It was the red zone. Quincy Williams pounces on a hole, and that hole had to be available for maybe a second, a half a second. Gets a tackle for loss on DeAndre Swift. In coverage, I think Travis Kelce's running like a wheel route up like the left sideline. Keeps up with Travis Kelce. Doesn't get hands on him. Gets enough to get a hand on the football, make a play on the football. Keeps up with Travis Kelce, forces that incompletion. So it's the athleticism that's married with the awareness that makes Quincy Williams so damn good this year, and it's been a joy to watch him.
You're 100% right, Justin. I could not say that any better myself. A lot of great linebackers in football, but Quincy really has earned his right to be on this list. He's been fantastic for the New York Jets.
Can I admit something?
No, I'm just kidding. Of course. What do you want to admit?
Quincy Williams and Quinnen Williams are brothers?
They are.
Never knew that. You're not joking.
Really? Really?
Never knew that.
Okay.
Did
Williams
they both go to Alabama?
No.
Why?
Where do you think Quincy Williams went?
I don't know where Quincy Williams went. That's why I'm asking.
What if I don't want to tell you?
Tough.
I'll give you a hint.
Rival SEC school. That would be funny.
No. ACC school, I believe.
Don't tell me Notre Dame's not an ACC
no,
school.
No, it's
We're getting off to a tangent.
No, it's Wake Forest. Demon Deacons.
Oh, that's weird. Brother went to Alabama. You went to Wake
Steve's
Forest?
calling me. Steve, speak.
He went to Murray State.
Oh,
That's even weirder.
Yep, 3rd round pick by the Jaguars was cut.
I remember he was on the Jags for a little bit.
Yeah, he was cut by them. Jets signed him off the scrap heap. A lot of people saw it as a signing to appease Quinnen to re-sign him, but it ended up being one of Saleh's reclamation projects. The way he does it, he's done it throughout his career.
Thank you, Steve. Yeah, I'm definitely mixing him up with Duke, one of the former edge rushers they had at Wake Forest, and not him. But long story short, Quincy Williams, amazing.
Brothers.
Yep. Steve, the thank you for the Jets breakdown. Needed that big time. This is the position we're going to shift to cornerback. This is the position where it's going to get a little wonky, I think, because it's a mix of film, it's a mix of stats. We're going to start off with our first selection. It's a rookie. It's Devin Witherspoon. He's back on the list. He's been fantastic this year. And again, I'll admit when I'm looking at cornerback, if I'm evaluating cornerback as a scout, I'm looking for someone who's a playmaker, and I'm looking at someone who can cover man, zone, both obviously, but zone and man. I think more man because you could teach zone, you could figure out awareness in zone. But Devin Witherspoon, he's great as a coverage corner, but he's also physical in the run game. He plays the run game really well too. He's been fantastic. Pass breakups, he's got 5 this year already. He's got run defensive grade by PFF. He's 4th. Forced incompletion rate, he's got 20%. It's completion percentage allowed when the ball's thrown to him. 42% allowed, which is 3rd in football out of all CBs. Yards allowed, 3rd out of all qualified CBs. He's been fantastic, man. And he's only a rookie. We remember we're like, oh, he can be a top 5 pick this year coming out of the draft out of Illinois. It's he could be. He's been that good. He's a dog. Cover, run. Devin Witherspoon paired up with Tariq Woolen has been such a good addition to that Seahawks defense.
Yeah, and I really like the decision that they made to put him in the slot too, where he spends time on the outside. I think there was even a week 7 game where they chose 39 snaps out wide and then 19 in the slot, but then right back in week 8, 35 snaps in the slot, 31 out wide. So I would say that they've made a pretty conscious decision after the first few weeks of the season to put him in the slot, and I like that, man. I really like that. I feel like, hey, if you feel like this guy is going to be a stronger football player in the slot, then put him in the slot. And then you have, Tyreek Woolen locking it down outside and, put Devin Witherspoon in the slot. So what's really interesting, Dalton, Devin Witherspoon's a rookie. The next guy that we also want to talk about, and I'm going to make you talk about him next. Next guy went from the slot. Now he's transitioning to the outside with a player getting hurt. These 2 players, 2 out of the 3 selections that we have made, are really young players. Yeah. And this is really rare to see for the position of cornerback, to have such young players, and even an honorable mention is Sauce Gardner. It's so rare to have, I feel like, these young corners transition so fast and being so good in the NFL. Yeah,
I mean, the second guy I got on our list is Deron Bland from the Cowboys. I said when we're talking about cornerbacks to start that when scouting a cornerback, I'm looking for somebody who's great in coverage, but also playmaker, whether that's in the run game or the pass game. Deron Bland is the definition of a playmaking cornerback right now. He's got the most interceptions in football out of all cornerbacks with 4. No one else has more than 4 at CB. Rating allowed, he's first. 22.0 rating allowed. If a quarterback spiked the ball every pass, his rating's 39, I think 39.7. So that quarterbacks have been more effective basically throwing incompletions than throwing the ball at Deron Bland. He's got 3 pick sixes.
That's insane.
3 pick sixes. That's amazing. He hasn't allowed a touchdown yet. Completion percentage allowed. He's 4th out of all qualified CBs. Forced incompletion, 17%. He's been so good. And you mentioned it too when Diggs got hurt. They had to shift him from slot to outside. And we mentioned him as an honorable mention on our first list. And we're like, all right, now you're going to be moving outside. Let's see if you could step up and prove yourself to be worthy of being on this team. And he's done nothing but prove it. He's been fantastic. And with Diggs going down, they needed that playmaker in the secondary. Deron Bland has continued to be that, and it's been paying massive dividends for this Dallas defense.
At least Devin Witherspoon was a first-round pick. Sauce Gardner's a top 5 pick, right? Deron Bland was a 5th-round pick, 167th overall in last year's draft, coming from Fresno State. I mean, come on. What a day 3 of a slam dunk pick for the Cowboys, and to get, not only have a guy, it's like, all right, well, we feel good about you in the slot, and then it's Diggs goes down for the year. All right, we're going to move you to the outside. Can you handle it, kid? And man, does this day 3 pick handle it? And he's, a top, according to your list, Dalton, he's the top 3 corner in the National Football League right now. At least definitely from a playmaking ability. And again, the question that I constantly have for this Dallas defense and this Quinn defense is, can you continue to force turnovers? Are you going to be able to continue to force turnovers at the same rate that you've been forcing them for the last how many years? And the answer is yes, and it's thanks to players like Deron Bland.
And it's somebody that you wouldn't expect to be like this big playmaking play. He's not a huge cornerback. He's not a super fast cornerback. I think he ran like a 4.5 40. Like he's been like someone that's not a prototypical dog athlete in terms of the CB position, but he's still been super productive. He's been the best playmaking cornerback right now in football in terms of interceptions and pick sixes. Yeah,
absolutely.
The third guy, Justin, this is, I think, the most controversial one, and I'll explain. I think it's because I've seen him play against my Colts twice this year already. Yep. It's former Rams cornerback, now Jaguars cornerback, Darius Williams. Darius Williams, you're probably like, Darius Williams? Why is Darius Williams on this list? Darius Williams has 3 picks this year, so that's tied for second out of CBs. He's got the most pass breakups in football with 11. His forced incompletion percentage is second in football at 21%. His rating allowed is 64.9, which is 6th in football. All these numbers are great, but here's some context to it, right? He's faced the 6th most targets out of CBs. Out of all CBs in football, he's faced the 6th most targets. So that doesn't mean their teams are not shying away from him. They're throwing the ball at Darius Williams. And you know what Darius Williams is saying? He's saying, I'll take that challenge. Throw the ball at me. I'll break the pass up. I'll even create an interception. Why not? He's also got a pick 6 in his back. No worries. Now, when a playmaker like this, Darius Williams, he's got 3 picks this year. He's been targeted a lot. It's very similar to Trayvon Diggs because we talked about Diggs having all those interceptions, but he gave up a lot of yards. When a cornerback is targeted at the rate that Darius Williams is targeted, he's going to give up yards. He has allowed the 5th most yards in football at the CB position. It's something to note. But that said, he's been so good at making plays for Jacksonville's defense. Andre Sisco also in the secondary, who's been a very good part helping him out at the safety position. But Darius Williams has made plays, and I'm like, wow. After getting that contract, I wasn't sure if he was like worth it when Jacksonville signed him. This season, he's really stepped into his own and has been huge. And Jacksonville, I believe they're still number 1 in football in terms of turnover and creating turnovers this year. And he's a big part why.
Yeah, I think Darius Williams, I'm looking at coverage scheme snaps on PFF right now. Mm-hmm. And Darius Williams has the most snaps in coverage out of all corners in the NFL this year. Very low against man, 16%, but 72.5% zone. 280 snaps against in zone coverage. That leads the league in zone snaps this year, and he's one of the best. He's one of the best in zone coverage in the National Football League too. So that's what the Jaguars run. That's their identity. That's their defensive identity. And Darius Williams is fitting it really well. And also, very low completion percentage allowed in zone coverage allowed. Only 39 yards after the catch on 19 completions is really impressive and really crazy. So,
and one more thing, Justin. He's 30 years old. Like, this is not a guy, we're talking about 2 young cornerbacks on this list. He's been around since 2018. He's 30. He came out of college relatively late for a current NFL player. He's 30 years old. He's in his 7th year. And we usually don't see guys in their 7th season have arguably their best season at cornerback.
I very much like the diversity that we have on this list, Dalton, especially for corner.
Yeah,
kind of corners all. One corner that's older. He's not really a journeyman, but
no,
he's played with a lot. He's played with a lot of different teams. one corner that's a first-round pick and then another corner that's a second-year day 3 pick. So I like the diversity that we have here, Dalton.
Thank you. Shout out Jalen Johnson, who got hurt. He's been having a great. He was out for 2 weeks. He's been playing great. Paulson Adebo, Sauce Gardner. Those guys have played great. They just missed the list.
Safeties, last position.
Safeties. I think there's one guy at safety that I don't have on this list that I'm the most mad at because I love this player and I'm like, can't put him on because there's one guy who's been so good in terms of playmaking at safety. He's got to be on here. If I don't have him on here, I think it's crazy. Ravens safety Geno Stone. 5 interceptions. Leads all of football, not just safeties. It's 5 interceptions. Unbelievable. When we're talking about that safety position, right, there's one of 2 things you're doing at safety for the most part. It's either you're quote unquote a box where you're playing more against a run and you're going to be physical in aspect, or number 2, you're a coverage safety, whether it be cover 1 playing center field, if you will, man-to-man versus the tight end or running back. Geno Stone has been more of that zone, sitting back. Let's see if a quarterback makes a mistake. And Geno Stone's capitalized. 5 picks. You think in that situation too, he would allow a lot of yards or gives up per reception. He's 7th out of all safeties, only 7.6 yards allowed per reception. That's a great rate for a guy who's created 5 interceptions for his defense. Another reason why the Ravens defense has been so good is because a guy like Geno Stone has stepped up. I believe, is it Marcus Williams? I believe Marcus Williams is another one of their safeties too, that he's like, that defense has been counting on, but Geno Stone has been the guy right now.
Yeah, man. I will say this Baltimore defense, they play 2 high safeties basically all the time, right? That's what they're known for. I love watching safeties in 2 high systems, especially the free safety, because the free safety has, especially if you're in a 2 high scheme, instead of being in cover 1 where you're covering the entire field, right? And you have so much responsibility to avoid the deep play or to prevent the deep play. If you're playing in a 2 high scheme, half field responsibilities, you can have a lot of fun. I'm going to try to bait the quarterback to throw this. I'm going to sit back here, and I'm going to make the quarterback think that he can make this throw on the sideline, that he can make this whole shot throw, and then I'm going to fucking close on that shit. It is a lot of fun to watch safeties in 2 high systems, and they get paid. They get paid because they can make those plays versus safeties that maybe play in single high systems. You're more of a preventer versus a playmaker, but if you're in a 2 high scheme, I think it's very easy for you to be a playmaker, and Geno Stone, I think, is the epitome of that.
And let me just say, Geno Stone, this was a guy they didn't expect to play. Like, it was Kyle Hamilton and Marcus Williams. Marcus Williams gets hurt. Geno Stone has been really taking over. And some, they rotate safeties in. That's a given. But Geno Stone was the 3rd guy at safety, and he's leading the league. Not just the Ravens, leading the league in interceptions. I think that's so fascinating. Marcus Williams being banged up. Geno Stone comes in, capitalizing and getting some PT.
7th round pick of the 2020 draft.
Maryland or no?
I would be really impressed if you know this.
No, that was
Iowa.
A guess. Iowa. You know why? This is a weird tangent. I think Steve can correct me if you got with a yes or no. There's a player in college basketball named Diamond Stone.
Yeah, a couple years ago. I think he was out of Maryland. I believe that was in the 2018, 2019.
That's who I was confusing him with. Same last name. And sorry, I think that was so funny how I mixed that up. But yeah, Geno Stone, really good. Moving to our number 2 slot, I was fighting myself for like 15 minutes, typing in between Jesse Bates and Javon Holland, because both these guys have had very good seasons. And I ultimately went against my heart and went Jesse Bates. I like Jesse Bates. I love Javon Holland. But Jesse Bates, he's got 3 picks. I think that was my tiebreaker. My ideal safety when I'm talking about the safety position is someone who creates plays on the back end, making sure no explosives happens. And doing so with creating 3 picks is huge. Coverage and run defense, he's a top five safety. He ranks 3rd and 4th respectively, graded by PFF. He's forced 2 fumbles. He's got 52 tackles this year. He's not allowing a high completion percentage. Jesse Bates, I don't think he's had a pick since we've last talked about him, but he still has an impact on that Falcons defense because he's willing to come down and make plays in that run game, which we've mentioned that Falcons defense, how good they've been against the run this season. Kind of shockingly, at one point, they were 1st overall in yards per carry against allowed. So Jesse Bates, I think he's been having had a hot start, kind of cooled off, but he's still having a very good season for this Falcons defense. Javon Holland has been really good too. I keep saying it. I love him. I'm so sorry he's not on this list.
My guy Antoine Winfield, snubbing him.
He's the other. Hey, if you read, right next to Javon Holland on honorable mention, I have Antoine Winfield Jr. right there.
I know. And the problem with Antoine Winfield is I think he'll have like a really good game, and then I think he'll have like an average game, and he's not putting them together fully. But dude, safety is so hard, and these safeties are asked to do a million different things, and one week your responsibility is completely different than your responsibility the next week. It's like if you're a defensive lineman, your responsibility is stop the run, get after the quarterback. Even if you're a corner, it's don't allow the catch. If you're a safety, your job could be, all right, you're playing Christian McCaffrey, you have to cover him one week, and you have to be in the box. You could be playing Travis Kelce the next, and it's like, all right, have fun with that. Or you could be playing the Buffalo Bills one week, and it's just shadowing towards Stephon Diggs. It's crazy the amount of things that safeties are asked to do, and how versatile they have to be. So Dalton, that's going to conclude our all JM NFL team version 2.0. I think this is my favorite conversation that we've had so far out of the four. Yeah, I really think so. I think the conversation we had on the players, I think where these players all came from, I think it was some of my favorites. So I'm looking forward to the all underrated video. That's like the next video that we're
2 weeks
doing. Yeah.
No, I was saying like what comes out in 2 weeks, right?
2 weeks, yeah, 2 weeks. So we'll see you. We'll see you in 2 weeks for that. That'll be the next All JM team. We'll see you with the power rankings. We'll see you with trivia. Thank you for watching. Like, comment, subscribe. We'll see you next time. Peace.